Hi, this is Dr. Philip Young. This video is going to cover my theory on facial beauty. So one of the things I noticed in Beverly Hills was that some of the people that were getting plastic surgery had a tendency not to look natural. And my thought was, if some of these people with all the money in the world and all the access weren't able to get some of the best results, there might have been something that we didn't understand fully. Hi, this is Dr. Philip Young. We're Aesthetic Facial Body Plastic Surgery and the Beauty Docs on YouTube. If you enjoyed watching this, click the like button below. So it all started when I trained at USC. Basically during that time I was in LA and I essentially learned from the best. And I feel that my experiences in LA put me in a place to feel that I could understand some of what the most knowledgeable people in plastic surgery really knew about beauty and plastic surgery. So I felt that if I was able to be in touch with those type of people, I had a little confidence that they probably knew more, or at least as much as most of the people in the world. So one of the things I noticed in Beverly Hills was that some of the people that were getting plastic surgery had a tendency not to look natural. And my thought was, if some of these people with all the money in the world and all the access weren't able to get some of the best results, there might have been something that we didn't understand fully. So that led me to the direction of trying to figure out how I could contribute to plastic surgery in a way that I felt was most interesting for myself. And what I found was facial beauty was something that we didn't really understand. And so I went into this whole period where I tried to think about what it is made someone's face beautiful. And I had been thinking about it for about 2 or 3 years. And it literally all came to me one night. It was funny, it was during a fellowship interview in Syracuse. And I happened to be in this seedy hotel because at the time I couldn't afford staying at a nice hotel, and the seedy hotel was kind of loud. You know, I couldn't go to sleep, so I basically stayed up for several hours just thinking about this idea about facial beauty. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, it all of a sudden came to me, and I thought that was so simple that there's no possible way that no one had thought about this before. So I looked into literature and tried to figure out, or try to find to see if this idea was actually represented before, and it wasn't. And basically what I found as I was thinking in a schizophrenic type of manner in Syracuse, that facial beauty has to be based on something we look at, obviously. But previous theories were based on external landmarks that we tended not to concentrate on. For example, the neoclassical canons by Leonardo da Vinci concentrated on external landmarks such as the trachea or the hairline, the glabella, the subnasale or the junction between the nose and the lip, and then the mentum. And there's been a lot of studies, particularly by Dr. Farkas and others, that show that the neoclassical canons don't actually differentiate from normal to beautiful. And I thought that was reasonable because some of those external landmarks people hardly paid attention to when they looked at someone. So I wanted to figure out what it was that people looked at, and obviously it had something to do with the eyes. And when I was sitting there in Syracuse, I figured out that I had an aha moment that it's our iris, it's the color part of our eye. And some of this is based on a lot of previous studies that I looked into. I looked into almost, not all of this possible studies, but I looked into some of the major studies and major thoughts on beauty, which helped me to come up with this current theory of mine. And basically what I found out, or what I believe in this theory, is that the color part of your eye is the measuring stick for a lot of things on our face. For example, the distance from the eyelid margin to the eyebrow, and the width of the nose, the size of the tip, as well as the distance from here to here, and the height of the lower lip, all should be one iris width. So previous thought had discussed and brought forward some of the ideas that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and a lot of people didn't know any of the real answers of what beauty is. And my point that I've been telling people as I discuss about beauty is that if you can actually say someone's more beautiful than another person, you basically agree theoretically that there is better and worse. And if you can say that someone's better and worse, then you have this paradigm that you're on, this spectrum of grades of beauty, if you even agree that someone's more beautiful than the other. So that means that you can keep going this way and that way until you get to the most beautiful. And to me, there definitely was an existence, we just didn't know what it was. And to me, in that face, that very beautiful face, also had everything ideal in the face as well. So that's where I came up with that idea that it must be the colored part of our eye. The actual colored part of the eye, anything similar to it in the size is going to be defined by that. And so some of these ideas have been set forth by 3 different papers that I've published. The most latest theory latest paper was published in December 2016, and I have another paper that's on the way discussing other elements of my theory. My most current paper basically took a bunch of people's faces and we morphed them, including line drawings, and we tested these distances from here to here, the width of the nose, the height of the lower lip, the height of the upper lip, and also the width that the distance that the ear extends from the side of the face. So anyways, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video on facial beauty. I'm going to cover some of the basic points about this interesting subject, and I hope you enjoy this. I would love to hear from you, so if you get a chance, leave a message in the comment section below, or you can email me through our website, and I really look forward to hearing from you. Bye! So let us begin. First, I would like to give you an outline of our presentation. Firstly, I'm going to present a case presentation to demonstrate some fascinating things about beauty. I'm going to then talk about the relevance and suggest that beauty shapes the direction of our world. Then I will discuss what I termed crossing the corpus callosum and how I discovered a theory on beauty by discussing current thoughts about beauty and some theories that others have introduced in the past. Understanding the basic ideas and theories on beauty from the past is central in understanding a new theory and why it may be different and possibly better. I will then discuss my theory on beauty in more detail and some of the previous studies that I've done and the data and conclusions that I've reached currently. First, I want to talk about why facial beauty is important. Well, from a medical standpoint, knowing a mathematical answer to facial beauty can help us with the way we reconstruct and reshape the face after cancer or trauma. It is obviously important for a plastic surgeon to reach beauty in the face because making a face beautiful is paramount for our profession. As you'll see, beauty impacts almost every aspect of our lives, from school, work, politically, and obviously socially. Beauty is pervasive in our everyday lives, as we see its glamorization in movies, TV, magazines, and the list goes on. Here's a case to illustrate some fascinating things. If you were to choose to hire someone for a new job and you had these 2 candidates, who would you choose? I would bet you might consider the prettier person much more than the other person. Did you know that research has shown that you attribute much more positive attributes to the more attractive person? The more attractive person is more likely to be thought of as smarter, more honest, more friendly, more intelligent, creative, and exciting. Why does this happen? Well, there is actually some logic in why we do this. There are many theories and we'll present them, and we'll see that the reasons are based on self-preservation and they actually do fit in Darwinian principles. But before, let's see how beauty impacts our daily lives. Did you know that Muir and colleagues in 2001 showed that more attractive babies are rewarded greater maternal affection? In grade school, more attractive students were rated as being more intelligent, more sociable, and popular, and were even given better grades. But these differences disappeared on standardized objective, non-subjective tests. More attractive people are usually more likely to get hired, given a higher salary, and more easily promoted. In fact, one study determined that more attractive people earn $200,000 more in a lifetime than less attractive people. Beauty shapes our world. In the 1960 election, Kennedy's good looks appeared to make a substantial difference in John F. Kennedy winning that election over Nixon. This same phenomenon seemed to help also Bill Clinton when he beat Bush, the incumbent president, in 1992. Some people thought that the lack of aesthetics with Hillary had an effect in the 2016 election. Charles Darwin has been known as the founder of the theory of evolution, where his most basic thought is based on the survival of the fittest. Beauty would seem to offer no survival advantage because, according to Darwin, function precedes form. So how did beauty fit into our evolution? Many have theorized that beauty is a marker for a pathogen-free state and that it takes a healthier person or being to create beauty. There are many clues that a less beautiful face may indicate a less healthy being. Abnormal facial shapes clue us into genetic defects, severe allergies, and medical diseases. Endocrine changes during puberty stimulate fuller lips and sexual maturation. Healthier people may have an advantage in creating these positive changes. In short, a beautiful person signifies to us that this person is healthy and that our children will be healthy as well. Also, because it can be complicated and time-consuming to assess all qualities about a human being, beauty is an easy way, although oftentimes an inaccurate way, to help us decide on some unrelated qualities. A similar phenomenon is associated with pricing of products. There's a lot of data and information on this subject. Some people think that beauty may be mainly a trait that is propagated by the American Hollywood culture. But studies by Murad in 2001 showed that cultures with more disease, like Ethiopia, find physical attractiveness as more important than cultures with less disease, like the US. Allen and colleagues the same year studied 10,000 people from 37 cultures that showed that non-US people found physical traits more important than US college students. Studies in neurology show also that we are genetically built to select for beauty as well. The thought is that if beauty was biologically significant, it must be in our neuroanatomy. Chen and colleagues in 1990 showed through chimera studies where a face created from one half of the face showed that the right face was found to be more beautiful. Because the right face is seen more by our right retinal fields due to the flipping of the image by our lens, the tracing of the nerves show they go to the right side of the brain. What these researchers suggested is that we have in our neuroanatomy a particular pathway that is built to appreciate beauty and thus select for it and further propagate it. So now that we have evidence that beauty is significant, that beauty fits into Darwinian principles, and we have also found that beauty is biologically significant, and we have it wired into our neuroanatomy, let's talk about the theories that have dominated in the past. The magical number phi has always been brought up as the number that mathematically determines beauty. This number divides the line so that the smaller is related to the larger segment in the same way that the larger segment is related to both segments as a whole. This magical number is 1.618. As I mentioned earlier, I theorized that these external landmarks is not as important as the iris width in finding beauty. The number phi is based on these external landmarks as well. In addition, where you choose to start a point on the face is very arbitrary, and really, this number is nothing more special than the number derived from 3/2, or 3 halves. Jefferson and colleagues in the International Journal of Orthodontics showed evidence that disproved phi as defining beauty, and I absolutely agree, phi has nothing to do with defining beauty based on previous theories. But it is possible that it could be applied elsewhere, which I have yet to discover. As I mentioned earlier, Leslie Farkas proved through numerous publications that Leonardo da Vinci's neoclassical canons, which are dependent on these external landmarks and which dominate current thoughts on beauty, also did not define beauty, let alone describe the normal population. Numerous other specialties of science have also come short in defining beauty. So what are the main problems with previous theories? Again, they're all based on objects and points, external landmarks that people really didn't spend much time looking at when they were assessing a face. So why has facial beauty been so elusive? This explanation will also explain how we process beauty within the brain. First, beauty is less based on obvious external landmarks and more on the slight variations in light that your skeletal and soft tissue anatomy create. These subtleties make it hard to concretely nail down exact points in the face. In turn, finding a theory based on these subtleties is made much more difficult. As I was discussing earlier, our right brains appreciate beauty more, and our right brains are the abstract thinking parts of the brain, whereas our left brains are the mathematical thinking, analytical portions of our brain. Because the brain is connected by the much smaller corpus callosum, there is the possibility of losing a lot of information, and our right and left brains ultimately can suffer in their communication. So this basically made it harder to analyze beauty because the data transfer might have been lost or muddled. Our appreciation of beauty is further spread out around our brain because as we scan different parts of the face, With our eyes, we actually activate those same parts in our brain that control the movement and feeling of those same parts in our body. In other words, when we see someone's lips, we activate the feeling and movement centers of the lips in our own brains. Also, because the sight, and especially sights related to beauty, can stimulate certain emotions, our appreciation of beauty extends to the emotional center further deeper in our brains. This explanation of how different parts of the brain each play a part in appreciating beauty shows how dispersed our thoughts and neural activity are in the brain, which further complicates our ability to find a mathematical answer to beauty. Also, because the very beautiful contain minor variations, it's hard to say what is the exact mathematical ideal because there are so many mild variations of beauty seen in nature that could be the answer. Now that we explained why we couldn't figure out a mathematical explanation of beauty, do we know whether there's an ideal in the first place, or does the eye of the beholder hold true and that beauty is really variable and not based on a defined mathematical number? Like the findings of the universal grammar and the universal nature of facial movements and emotions, I believe there's an ideal in facial beauty for all races. As I was mentioning earlier, if you can agree that there are some people that are more beautiful than others, you essentially agree to a spectrum. Any spectrum will have extremes. The extremes for our spectrum of interest are the most beautiful and the least beautiful. Our goal is to find the most beautiful. As early as 3 months before children are influenced by culture and the environment, studies have shown babies this age have a marked preference for the attractive face. A study taking a number of Japanese and American people show they like the same group of Japanese and American Caucasian women. Other cross-cultural studies show similar results, that there is a basis for beauty that is consistent irrespective of ethnic origin. Could beauty just be the average of all extreme traits? Galton in the 1880s used composites of multiple faces averaged into one image, and he used these to see if physical traits would be associated with health, disease, beauty, and criminality. Surprisingly, when he did the average of the faces, he found that they created a more beautiful face. This has been repeated and further supported by others. From these findings, the theory that beauty was average became an attractive way of thinking about what beauty is. However, Perret in his seminal Nature 1994 paper compared a composite of more attractive people with a composite of average people and found the attractive composite was more preferred. They then did a third composite enhanced based on the differences between the two and found that the enhanced third composite was found to be the most preferred out of all three. This essentially disproved the averageness theory and indicated that there was something else about beauty that we just didn't know. Now that we have some information and clues that beauty may be universal, what is then the ideal? I knew at the time it had to be based on what we spend most of our time looking at. Studies by Yarbus and Riggs looked into eye movements as they scanned pictures of faces. What I found through these images is that the iris definitely dominates. From there, it seems to me that there is an area in the middle and then another area further down. I theorized that, based on this and other studies, that the objects that might be important are the iris, nasal tip, and lower lip. To me, these objects had to be the centerpieces of the face oval that need to be related to each other in a symmetric way. This relationship would help me figure out how many of the anatomical pieces in the face would be most ideally positioned. More basic than this, however, I thought that a clue to beauty might be related to the actual size of the iris. In particular, because we spent so much time looking at the iris, as revealed by these eye tracking studies, it had to have some significance. This is what I figured out in the very late evening in Syracuse during my fellowship interview, that the actual size of the iris was important in ideally dictating the size of many objects in the face. This is where I came up with the first most important figure, where I diagrammatically show you how the size of the iris determines the ideal size for the height of the eyebrow, the width of the nasal bridge and nasal tip, the distance from the bottom of the nose to the top of the lip, and the height of the lower lip, and the distance the ear extends from the head. This first seminal paper also set forth other basic principles of this new theory on facial beauty. My first paper used some of these basic measurements based on these principles to compare normal people from a facial plastic surgery clinic and beauty models to see if these distances correlated. I had observers rate each test person from 1 to 100, with 100 being the most attractive, and I measured many of these ideal distances. What I found was that the attractiveness rating correlated with how close those shapes and distances within a person's face was to the ideals based on the circles of prominence. This paper in theory went on to receive the Sir Harold Duff Gillies Award from the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery for Best Basic Science Research Fellowship Paper. The next level of beauty after the size of the iris relates to how the main primary objects relate to one another. To help explain this, I would like to talk about how beauty relates to our lives. From this, we can get clues on how to find out more about what beauty is. One thing that dominates our life is order. From the time we wake up, we have order in our lives. Beauty is really just order in the face. It's that simple of an idea. If you were to ask millions of people where to place a circle or dot within a box, 99.9% are likely to place that circle right in the center. Your face is the same way, but with 4 objects, and those are the iris, nasal tip, and lower lip. Those primary circles of prominence should relate to each other in a symmetrical way. My second paper looked into this exact relationship by creating faces with line drawings that varied the distance from the iris to nasal tip to lower lip to bottom of the chin. We predicted that the 3 iris width distance would be ideal for each of those lengths, and that's what we indeed found. My paper, published in December 2016, covers in more detail some of those basic shapes and distances defined by 1 iris width. In this study, we asked 190 people to rate each picture either 1 for the best and 4 for the worst. Most all of the predictions on beauty based on the circles of prominence were found to be correct. In the eyebrows, I had predicted that 1 iris width would be the ideal height, and this was found to be true in a statistically significant manner for both the line drawings representing a face and actual morph pictures of a real person. The nasal tip and bridge were ideally found to be 1 iris width. This reached significance with the morph picture, but not the line drawings, even though 1 iris width was more preferred based on the averages found. As predicted by the circles of prominence, the upper lip was ideally found to be half an iris width, and the lower lips were ideally found to be 1 iris width. All 4 arms of the study were found to be statistically significant. The last portion of this paper and study looked into how far the ear extended from the side of the head. I theorized through the circles of prominence that the ear should extend 1 iris width from the head. We found support that this was true, as the morph picture showed in a statistically significant manner that this distance was 1 iris width. In the line drawings, the half iris width had a lower average and more preferred score, but this was not statistically significant. I hypothesized that this was due to the one-dimensional presentation of the line drawings, and that with 3 dimensions, the ears are more shadowed and thus can tolerate a wider presentation in real life. Stay tuned for our next facial beauty theory update. We have a new paper that we are working on that is looking into the ideal position of the ear, which we believe is aligned with this second oblique. The significance is that it supports our contention that the face is organized by the relationship between the iris and nasal tip. This same angle from the iris and nasal tip, which we call the first oblique, is parallel to the second oblique from the lower lip and cheek shadowing and top of the ear. We are also looking at the ideal takeoff of the nose, which we believe is in line with the top of the irises. Lastly, we're going to discuss the ideal configuration for the pucker in the lower lips and length of the lower lips as a whole, which we believe are 3 and 5 iris widths. Our next concentration will be to assess how the face is organized as a whole. We're going to dive deeper into the relationship between the iris, nasal tip, and lips and the face as a whole, and try to find out reasoning for their most ideal arrangement. Thanks for watching. We would love to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're the Beauty Docs. We're going to be coming up with insightful videos showing you a glimpse into our lives in plastic surgery. Specifically, we're going to show you the human side of what we do. Through that, we hope to enrich your life as these experiences have enriched ours. Click the following annotations to subscribe and be the first to see these unique videos on our YouTube channel. To learn about our theory on beauty that helps us get you the best results, to see a new video showing you the relationship between holidays and heart attacks, or to see a story about plastic surgery and hope in our patient with an autoimmune disease who then developed cancer during our treatment. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.